Welcome to the Bike Talk with Dave podcast. I'm Dave Mabel. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're learning what it takes to start a bicycle company. Crazy, right? My guest, Connor Swegle, is a co-founder of Priority Bicycles. He and his partner, Dave Weiner, started the company more than a decade ago, and they have built a brand based on simple design, low maintenance, reasonable prices, and of course, great performance. They're also very proud of their 24/7, 365 customer service. Obviously, that plays a part in their success over the past decade. So I'm super excited to introduce you to Connor and dive into what it's like to start a bike company from scratch. Connor Swegle, it's a treat to have you on Bike Talk with Dave. I'm glad we made this happen and figured out technology / I figured out technology in order to meet and find out about you, some time in Iowa that you've spent, and the company you and your partner founded, as you said, on the heavy side of 11 years ago. So welcome to Bike Talk with Dave. It's a treat to meet you and have you on.
No, it's great to be here. Love the pod, love the range of people you talk to, and love how we get to learn about different aspects of the cycling industry outside of just keyboard warriors in comment sections.
I appreciate hearing that. Early on, somebody's like, "You're like a bicycle variety show." I'm like, "Yeah, I try to have everybody on." So yeah, absolutely. And, of course, it has nothing to do, when I first started, I was a weekly podcast. It has nothing to do with needing content, and you'll talk to anybody who can fog a mirror. But Bicycle Variety Show sums it up. So anyway, I'm super stoked. You guys founded a bicycle company, like I said, 11 years ago, and I totally want to hear about that. I'm super curious about the why and, of course, the what. But before we do that, I kind of want to meet you and learn about who you are and maybe talk about a little bike ride across Iowa that you did last summer. So anyway, I don't know. I'm curious about your riding credentials. When did you start riding? What kind of riding do you do?
Yeah, for sure. I think we can kind of get to where we are as a company kind of through that. I mean, I started as a rider in a lot of ways that I think everybody rides, which is just basic A to B mobility. And I was lucky to go to UC Santa Barbara, where there's more bicycles at that place than other colleges have students. And I think what we were able to do there and was just really just enjoy the process of getting from A to B. And it wasn't about what you rode. And, if anything there, if somebody had a nice bike, you were like, what are they doing with that thing? Every bike that we had was found in a dumpster or bushes. And then, luckily you meet somebody who knows how to work on bikes and they make it work right, which, really my partner, Dave, like he and I went to UC Santa Barbara together. And I actually bought, before I even knew him, I bought my Trek from him at Encina Cycles in the Bay Area. And, we put that together much later. He's working there growing up, but in college, he had an old beach cruiser, an old Schwinn that he slapped together for me that I rode around. And who knew that 20 years later, we would have Priority Bicycles. But I think the process of like where Priority has gone has really, I think I've been in line with what that is as an experience. I mean, when we started 11 plus years ago, my partner Dave had come from the cycling industry and left. Dave and I had worked at a company that did software for bike shops in college. So that I learned about some of the technical sides of it, but was never really like a wrench or, a hardcore rider. But, after Dave said, hey, he was in software and was like, I want to come back to cycling, but I really have this idea for a low maintenance bicycle. And this was at the really like at the beginning of direct to consumer in what we were seeing with brands like Warby Parker. And he was like, I think like, we can make this like low maintenance bicycle that has a belt drive and a chain, and belt drive existed, but it wasn't popular. It was really niche, but he saw the benefits of it and said, hey, let's just make a company that makes this bike. And at the time I was working in sports branding, sports and entertainment branding. And we both were at this juncture in life where we were like, dude, what are we doing with our lives? Like if these jobs we have or what we continue to do, like there's no way we're going to make it out. And that's actually where the name Priority came from, was like doing things we love with people we love. So you had this like passion for, doing something that we loved. I think then you had this product that was really unique at the time. And then you had this business model that met technology. So all that really came together with the start of Priority. We had this 3-speed belt drive bike that was a low maintenance bicycle. We launched it on Kickstarter. We wanted to back it for $30,000. The project was $565,000. We sold over 1,500 bicycles in the process. That model with some iteration changes still exists today. But I think what's interesting is that this desire for this low maintenance idea was something that was really resonant to people. And this idea that they kind of liked our story and what we were doing. And the foundation of that has stuck with us. So, I think as we've gotten feedback from our riders over the years, somebody was riding this 3-speed town bike and they're like, oh, I'm riding this by the beach. And Dave and I are like, well, we went to UC Santa Barbara. That's not a beach cruiser. Let's make a beach cruiser. Dave's kids were like ready to ride a bike. We're like, oh, let's make kids bikes. 3 speeds isn't enough to commute on. So we made a commuter bike. And I think all of that just naturally progressed from that same core idea of low maintenance, but then hearing that from our customers and hearing what the demands were and really developing towards that. And I think the more products that we've developed, the more riding that we've been doing, all the way through doing 500 miles across Iowa, fully packed on adventure bicycles that we make.
Dude, you ran the gamut right there. You hit everything I want to talk about, from the Kickstarter campaign to you guys do cover the gamut. 16, 20, 24 inch. I love the name. It's just so simple. Start. What a great name for a bike. Here's where you start on the start. Anyway, from a 16, 20, 24 inch start bike, you've got super fast looking track bike and cross Iceland fully packed adventure bike, beach cruisers, and everything in between. The breadth of your lineup is actually huge. As I was doing my research, I was like, here's a whole list. Those are just categories. And then the whole list of bikes goes across the whole screen. And I'm like, are these all seriously different bikes? You guys offer a huge amount of different bikes. And you kind of just hit on that. Cargo bikes, recreational bikes, all kinds of stuff, which is super cool. I worked in a bike shop. And I will say, this goes two ways. One, I love the low maintenance aspect. And why I love the low maintenance aspect is because I worked in a bike shop. So A, I worked on bikes, and B, and I'm an avid rider, I hate working on my own bike. And I still hate working on my own bike. It's the last thing I want to do. I want a simple bike. My favorite bike, that's hard to say, but one of my favorite bikes of all time, I have a Gary Fisher Superfly, fully rigid, single speed. And I can just grab that out of the garage and go ride it, and it doesn't make any noise, and it doesn't miss any shifts, and it doesn't skip any shifts, and it just works every single time. Versus oh man, freaking derailleur's out of thing, or the shock is not working quite right, whatever. I mean, you know what I'm saying here, right? So I love that you're keeping it simple. Did I have a question in here? I swear I started this with a question.
I mean, it'll get to you, but I think exactly what you're talking about, I think, is the core of what the idea was for when we launched, which is a lot of people love riding bikes, but a lot of people don't love working on them. And I think that our Gates belt drive solution is something that, it's not going to be for everything, right? Like we would never walk in and say that, if you're inspired to ride like the riders on the Tour de France, that you're going to hop on a belt drive bike. But I think the areas and the categories where we focused, when we look at it, it is a wide breadth of everything from like kids bikes to cruisers to commuters to adventure. But I think this idea of that low maintenance experience is still at the core of all of it. So it's been very easy for us to move in that direction. We aren't forced to do model years or anything like that. So like, we don't have to force refreshing anything, and we can really think about the use case of the rider. I think, when we look back to, it's not only like the pillars of the company that have stayed the same, but it's also the fact that we do all of our customer service in-house, which I think is really unique. So we have customer service 365 days a year. And it obviously, like as our products have gotten more complex, so has our customer service team. But I think it's also that idea that whether it's a cruiser bike that you're riding or whether you haven't ridden your bike packing bike for 4 months and you're about to do an adventure in 3 days, when you're in a pinch, you can call us. And that does two things. Like one is obviously we want to be here for our customers. That's our number one thing. But the second thing with that is hearing the feedback. I think we're also able to kind of iterate on what we need based on the feedback. Or, if somebody has a question that keeps coming up, like, hey, I want to change my seat post or something, like we can make a video and throw that out there, immediately. So I think that, the pillars for what we have, the customer service side, those definitely have like kept the rudder in the water for, for everything that we've been developing. If you asked us 11 years ago, do you think you'd, do a bike ride from Seattle to Vancouver, fully packed, camping in Bellingham in between? I would have laughed at you. But we just got off of the road at doing that. And so, I think that the idea for the original bike has really still guided us through.
Yeah, that my question did actually come to mind. Having worked in a bike shop and seeing all the bikes out there, from the big names to some of the niche brands, I don't know, Electric comes to mind.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to work in bikes. I love bikes. I love working on bikes, in spite of what I just said. I love tinkering. How's that? But even if I had the idea of like, I think we could come up with a new bike that's easy to work on and easy to maintain and just works, let's start a company. Like that's a big line to cross, the let's start a company line. What pushed you over that line? But what took you from, hey, we have an idea to we're building our first and delivering our first bike? That's a huge line to cross. Looking back 11 years later, obviously you've got a ton of bike options now, but 11 years ago, like what pushed you over that line to think like, hey, we could actually do this and it might actually work and we might actually be able to create a business building bikes when the market is so full of bikes already?
Yeah, I think if you're going to start a business and you're going to start a business in the bike industry, you have to be insane.
Yep.
So it starts with a certain amount of insanity. I think, biking attracts a lot of entrepreneurs, right? So I'm sure that there's a lot of people who listen to this who are entrepreneurs in their own right. Some of them might be, roofers, and some might, own their own bike shop. But I think that there's a freedom that exists within cycling that draws a lot of people who, even if they're not fully entrepreneurs in terms of their business or work, like they certainly are free thinkers, which is really exciting. But I do think, successful businesses, like when we take a step back and think about the business of this, you have to have a confluence of luck that comes together, right? So we had the benefit of technology, in terms of like being able, with the technology, being able to use the internet to sell bicycles. We had my partner Dave's experience in bicycles from growing up in shops and technology. I had come from entertainment branding, doing big branding systems and communication systems. So like we were able to kind of bring that together. And then we were also at a time where, everything was direct to consumer. People are buying like their luggage direct to consumer. They're buying their glasses. They're buying their toothbrush direct to consumer, right? Now that part of the business has definitely gone away, right? Like I'm not going to say we're last man standing, but we have seen a lot of companies come and go in the last 11 years. And I think that we have been lucky, and I think for entrepreneurs everywhere, I mean, I think that the idea of having something unique, we're fully dedicated to this concept of low maintenance, right? Like that really helps us in a crowded marketplace. And then the customer service side, like answering, we get 250 chats in some way, text, WhatsApp, email per day. And I think being on top of that. So I think those are the things that, when we were lucky technically with what we had, because I think we had an idea for something unique, technology was working, but really like the customer service side has definitely, been a huge part of having a successful business in cycling. Ultimately, this idea of priority of like wanting to do something on our own and wanting to do something that was fulfilling played a huge part in it. Like you don't ride across Iowa in 120 degree heat for RAGBRAI 50 because you got to do it for work. No chance. Like it's awful. Like we're out there and we're like, it's awful. We were just in Boulder with our buddy Ryan Van Duzer. We had a big event there last weekend. And we climbed up to Gold Hill, which your listeners will know about Gold Hill. So we did this 2,500 foot climb at 7,000 feet, and I'm huffing and puffing. I don't want to talk to anybody next to me. I'm trying to represent the brand. I can't represent the brand when I'm like sweating over my handlebars, right? You don't do that if you don't have like a certain amount of care for the industry that we're in and what we're doing. And I think having a lot of acknowledgement for the efforts that riders put in, and I think that has been something for us that's been a differentiator, is that because we've always been talking with our customers and hearing from them, like when we think about products, like we think about when and where somebody's going to pull that bike out of their garage or even buy the bike, like what matters to them. And I think that's something that's been really helpful because not only are we thinking about our riders, but like we're riding with our riders. We're not doing like our cool guy, super fast ride and then trying to think about the customer. Like we're sweating next to the customer and like enjoying the process with them. And that's really fun.
You mentioned that several times about the direct to consumer thing. I mean, I get that was the time, that was 11 years ago. I get your experience there, but was it scary? Dave worked in bike shops. He was a wrench in a bike shop. You met him buying a bike from him in a bike shop. So tell me about that kind of thought process and the benefits and the drawbacks. And I mean, how's it going now?
For sure. Obviously, the drawbacks from the start was, we were at, I don't know if we were at Interbike or we were somewhere, year 2 or 3. And I remember like one of the people who worked for us, we weren't even at our own booth, right? Because we weren't selling to shops, but we were just there. And I remember some people from bike shops came by and they're like, wait, you're from Priority. And I remember somebody from a bike shop spitting on somebody who worked for us.
Wow.
And I think that kind of encapsulated, I think, the worst of it. With bike shops being like, you're trying to steal our business. I mean, a significant amount of our bikes get shipped to bike shops for assembly, where from a business perspective, that shop is getting great customer acquisition for their coming in there, right? Like there's accessories, like people buy a bike and somebody should be able to own their bike for years. And for you to keep enjoying your bike, you're going to do stuff to it, right? If it's a recreational bike, you're going to get, lights and bags and racks. And I think like we're very happy, even though we sell that stuff, we're very happy if that interaction happens on the shop side. And I think, we want to have products that stand up and that are unique and that customers love them. But as far as that customer experience, like if you feel comfortable getting your flat changed at your local bike shop, you definitely should go there and chat with them and support them. So early on, a lot of pushback, but also I think just where the industry has gone, like what's been happening in the industry. And I know you've talked about it, but like what's happened in the industry in the last few years, I think that there are a lot of shops out there that are more than happy to kind of work with us. And we're more than happy to have shops who want to have a unique product and a unique customer experience and be partners with us. So I think we're kind of coming out of that. I think a lot of bike shops, at least in the last few years, have also just been, they're too worried about, rightfully so, not in a bad way, but they're more concerned with what's happening within their own walls than what's happening on the outside of it. And so, unfortunately, yeah, there are companies that have gone away. There's been some big news even in the last couple of weeks. And, but I think with the shops now, we're at a point where there's a lot of shops that are more than happy to have us send the bike there. They can assemble it, get their fee for it, and then have a customer walk through the door and access one of these other bikes that we don't make, right? If you get into cycling with our $1,000, 8-speed hybrid bike and you love it, and you ride it for a year and you're like, you know what? Like, I've seen that roadie crew when I'm commuting to work in the morning. I want to hop on with them. You're going to go to the bike shop. And you know what? You ain't going to buy the $900, $899 starter road bike that's going to fall apart, right? You're going to go in there and get something that's like $3,000 to $4,000 because you're stoked. So there's a lot of room for people out there. And I think as long as we stay unique with what we're doing and respect the customer experience at the shops, then we're in a good spot.
Yeah, that's a really good explanation. And I feel like that relationship is a good one to have for sure. And I think a good bike shop would embrace that kind of relationship, because you're absolutely right. You need shorts and shoes and socks and helmet and glasses and all that other stuff that is another $1,000. So
for sure.
Yeah, they would totally jump on that. Tell me about belt drive.
Yeah. Well, we're fully committed to the belt drive experience. So I can, it's almost to the point where I can't even tell you about it because I'm so used to riding it. What I can tell you,
it just is.
When I get back on a chain bike, I can sure as hell tell you what that's like. Especially when I get hung up at a light or something with some weight on my bike. But no, I mean, belt drive for us is, it really was the differentiator from the start. Dave and I even had conversations going on because we're really trying to hit like this sweet price point, right? We wanted that bike to be $300 when we started. And I think it ended up being $350. But one of the conversations when we were trying to hit price point was, is the belt drive just too expensive for us, right? Like a belt drive system costs more than a crappy derailleur, and most customers wouldn't know the difference until they rode it for 6 months, right? We know the difference, but we even debated it early on, like, oh, maybe this is just something like an option for somebody to get. But once we were committed. Gates has been a tremendous partner for us with, not only their own, technology and supply, but even on development. I mean, when we were going from commuter bikes to adventure bikes, when we were working with our buddy Ryan Van Duzer, when he said, hey, I want to do the Divide, I have an idea for a bike, and we were making it for him, right? Like, we were working with Gates to make sure that technically we were going to be sound. So we worked together a lot with them. And, I think with belt drive, our thing is any bike we have, we do believe is the best bike for its designed purpose. And I think with belt drive, you definitely can do that. And so, belt drive has gotten us from having a chain that's not going to rust when you're just cruising around like once a month to, cycling across Africa, doing the Divide, doing RAGBRAI. And within those use cases, it's really been tremendous. And like, I don't ever think about working on my bike. Like, we did 3 rides in different states over 4 weeks, and I just boxed that bike up, shipped it, hopped back on, rode, didn't check anything. So that solution has been really great for people who really just want that durability.
First of all, I appreciate that you lump in RAGBRAI with the Divide or riding across Africa. I think they might be in different leagues, but I appreciate the shout out.
I want, it's something though, like, it's something that I think is very important, that I think it's undersold in the industry, which is that if anybody is willing to do something hard, like, it's relative, right? So like, this climbing Gold Hill last week was the hardest thing that a bunch of these riders had ever done. I thought, we had about 70 people out there. I thought that 12 to 15 were going to do the ride. And 40 started and 40 finished. And so like, for somebody who's never done that, like, there are a lot of ways in cycling that for somebody to do something like that, it's almost more impressive than doing a huge endurance race. because a lot of people who are doing the divide, they know that they're capable of it. It's just how fast are they going to do it, right? And they know how to suffer, and they know how to do. So there's tremendous accomplishment in that. But like when I look at somebody who's like, I've never climbed for 3 hours before. I mean, to me, that is like a tremendous victory, And so I think if anybody says I did 7 days of RAGBRAI and I didn't think I could do it, I'm like, dude, I'm here for that. And I think it's great to pair those things together. And I love it when we're sitting around, to talk about RAGBRAI. I mean, I know you love it. I love it, and I think it's a really unique thing. But I mean, to sit around at RAGBRAI, like last year, we had a guy who had just completed the divide and was there riding, and he's sitting next to some retirees from Seattle. And they're doing the same ride. They're talking about the same stuff. And I think like there's something about that doesn't necessarily get like the love that it should.
That's I appreciate that, and you're right about that perspective thing. Going back to the Scott Matter, the Dream Team director, talking about a kid in March didn't know how to ride a bike, and then rides all the way 500 miles across the state. 500 miles for anyone in a week is a big week, huge week, and for a kid who's freaking never ridden a bike before in March, and then in July, that's Tour Divide epicness for sure.
The fear, that kid had way more fear than anybody who completed the Tour Divide,
Yeah, yep. Yeah, you're right about that.
And the impact of that for them, right? Like if it didn't go the way that they wanted for a young person, I think to have that challenge at a young age is tremendous. And so, I think it's funny, like those are even the things that like, even though we're talking about beach cruisers and commuters. I mean, there's still that same idea within the string of products that we make. I mean, people want to feel good about riding to work. They want to feel good about, getting home from work. Like there isn't a lot of time to go and do the things that we love by bike. And so when you have the opportunity to do that, if you can pull your bike off the rack and go, it's a pretty great utility to have. And there's still plenty of space for the people that love wrenching or the people that are cutting weight like crazy, on their bike for sure. But there's something pretty cool about being able just to get on and go.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's definitely a feature of the belt drive is the simplicity and the kind of ever wearingness and cleanliness too. There's no lube. You don't have to take the chain off and wax it every week.
Yeah, I mean, try getting a flat in the middle of one of your rides, right? Yeah, you're walking back from that, like you ain't, you're not going to that fancy dinner without, scraping down your hands and wrists. But
right, exactly.
Pop it off, change it, pop it back on.
So I can definitely see the convenience, et cetera, benefits for a beach cruiser, for a commuter, for, I don't know, recreational bike. But talk to me about kind of the progress in changing gears for a bike that's going to do the Tour Divide. Like that to me is, you've got to have a huge range of gears. And do you get that these days I'm assuming you're talking about internal 9-speed hub or whatever, but talk to me about the technology of shifting.
For sure. For bike tech people, right, who are listening, like they know that the constraint with belt has typically been the approach to gearing and how to get, you're right. It's easy. It's been easy to just, right. You just put one more front on and you've just, tripled your gear range, right? You may not really have done that, right? But it can
There's
feel
some overlap,
but there's some math in there. But what's been great is, being around for 11, going on 12 years is that the technology that we have access to has changed. And in some instances how we want the bike to perform and what we think it can do, the technology sort of caught up to some of those concepts. So I think that what was our 600X is now our 680X, which was our divide bike that we made with Doozer. That was an instance where having the pinion gearbox, 600% gear range, which translates to you got a lot on the bottom and you got a lot on the top, and most people will never run out of bottom and will never run out of top with that kind of gear range. But having it sealed, getting rid of the derailleur so that you're not going to worry about bashing that on a rock and being stranded in the middle of nowhere. I think having that pinion technology and the pinion people, when they were creating these gearboxes, they were Porsche designers and cyclists, and they said to themselves, they're talking to each other, and one was late for work. At least this is how the story was told to me, right? And they're talking about being late for work again, and they're transmission designers at Porsche, and they're like, we would never put a derailleur on a performance automobile. Why do we have them on our performance bicycles, right? And so the pinion gearbox has been something where, we're able to really take advantage of the simplicity of the Gates belt. And then you get this massive gear range that's sealed. You're not going to worry about it falling out of gear. And it can be durable for things like the divide. I think now, there's an electronic shifting, a smart shift set up for that pinion, so you get electronic shifting. So if you want to be able to shift faster, change gears, you get to the top of the hill, you want to drop 5 or 6 gears, boom, that's right there. And it's even led to this guy right here, which was our prototype full suspension that we're launching in 3 weeks. That should be pretty groundbreaking, right? So like on the high end, for that belt drive usage, the gearing systems have definitely offered a lot of range for us for execution. And then when you look on the recreational side, like you said, it makes a lot of sense because, nobody wants to have this exposed cassette and, rusty chain when they're, if you don't ride your bike for 4 months in the winter and then you get back on it. I mean, you're starting at zero with that thing sometimes. So the gearing options have definitely grown. The access to electric motors, whether mid-drive or hub, also allows us to really unlock the benefit of belt drive. And we see it a lot, like people who use belt drive, and once they're on it, they're like, man, I'm not going back.
So gearing really has evolved since I think I last worked in a bike shop in 2010. So it's really evolved since then. And 600, how does that work? Steps? Do you feel it? Is it kind of
the box we use is 12 even steps. And so, when we were just climbing Gold Hill, we could easily pedal up, no problem, sit in the saddle for 2.5 hours. You just pedal. And then we had gears at the top to be able to pedal going down, but it's just 12 even steps, electronic shifting. If you get hung up and you have to stop, we've all had that thing where you got to pick up your rear wheel and try and get into gear. You never have to do that with this. I mean, at a stop, you drop 4 gears, drop 5 gears, you hop on and pedal. And the other thing too is when you're packed, right? If you're packing somewhere, everyone's had it happen, right? Somebody knocks over your bike and you're like, oh my God, did that fall on my drive side? Right?
For sure.
For us, never worried about it, which is great.
I know it's low maintenance, but maintenance, question mark.
For sure. I mean, there is a maintenance interval for the gearbox. Since it is a transmission, it sits in an oil bath, but you can buy the oil change kit, change it once a year, or every 6,000 to 8,000 miles. So that's super simple. And you know about this, but when you look at some of the Shimano Alpine situations, there can be a little bit more maintenance. There's a bit of a different maintenance interval to that, just in how they're set up. But certainly with the pinion, you're looking at just a really great maintenance interval. And look, we try and be very clear that it's not no maintenance, low maintenance.
Yeah.
Because it's still a moving part. And I think the other thing with that is that we want to make sure that people are taking care of their bikes, right? Just little things. We want to make sure that your stem bolts are tight and that, your brakes are working and that you have air in your tires, because those are essential safety things. And it's interesting because those aren't unique to Priority, right? But I do think sometimes people think that because we're a low maintenance brand that they never have to put air in their tires, right? Or they never have to check anything. And, it's we got to remind people that, that left pedal is reverse threaded.
Right. Yep. And do put air in the tires, and you can still break a spoke, or you can whack your rim out of whack or whatever. So yeah, this stuff still can go wrong. You pointed to it. wherever that is. Coming out end of October, a full suspension enduro machine. Tell me about that bike.
Yeah, it's really exciting for us. So the bike is called the Vanth. And like you said, it's a high pivot, full suspension, belt drive, pinion smart shift enduro. And I do have to give some context here. I am not a hardcore mountain biker, so there has been some learning in the process for me. So if you get into kinematics or ratios, I'm definitely not going to be your guy. But I think in terms of getting this bike launched and getting it out there, it's been it's been a 4-year process. When we first started this, we were working with a fellow named Mike Schwartz, who was the founder of Morpheus Bikes, and there'll be people who know Morpheus. He's actually cousins with my partner Dave here, and they would always talk bike, but there was no overlap, right? It was like for him, he's like, hey, we make these really cool sexy bikes, and for us, it was like we're making these cool everyday bikes, but there was no real overlap. But then Mike ended up shutting his company because he had a variety of other businesses, but always was very interested in the innovation side. And he even said it. He's like, we have Morpheus. I had to ride Morpheus all the time. But when I shut down Morpheus, I got to ride everything. And I still felt like there was some stuff undone. So he really was enamored by this idea of high pivot and was really interested in figuring out if we could bring the simplicity of belt drive to it. And so when we first launched, there's been probably 5 iterations of this bike over 4 years. When we first started, we still had the grip shifter for the pinion. And It was interesting because the first couple iterations, we got to the point where the suspension system for that gravity-oriented enduro experience, it was delivering. And what was interesting is our test riders, who were former pros, were giving us feedback. They're like, I like this bike enough to suffer through the grip shift, which was really interesting in terms of the promise of the system, right? And so we go through the stiffening process. We go through the fact of the complexity of how do you make the belt work without, having derailleur growth. We were really interested in bringing that mass towards the center of the bike and having really great travel with the high pivot. And so as we're continuing to work through the steps of delivering on the ride quality that we wanted with the high pivot experience, the pinion smart shift technology came around, where it allowed us to make these lightning fast shifts, where it's like you could keep your feet flat and go up or go down and respond within that gravity oriented experience. And so we did I think this was kind of unique, but we did a test ride event about 6 months ago when we kind of had our final prototypes, and we actually had this our Vanth, wasn't the Vanth at the time, Project 174, and we put riders on it, and they didn't know who Priority was. They knew nothing about us. They were like, well, I'm just going to get on and test ride this thing. And we also had some chain bikes as well. And what was interesting is people got off the mountain after riding it, and they were like, hey, this belt drive thing you guys are doing, that's different and that's fun. And if I'm thinking about buying a bike, I want to know where that's going. And so that really allowed us to feel really confident with bringing it to market.
I am going to be honest here. I saw it on Instagram. People go to the Instagram Ride Priority to look at it. It looks heavy. I'm just going to tell you that it looks heavy. Is it heavy?
No, I mean, it's going to be about 40 pounds.
Yeah.
Which, what's interesting is that when we were out in the Pacific Northwest riding, people ride a lot heavier bikes than that out there.
Really?
And yeah, I mean, when they're putting on the tires that they want and all the gear, I think for the gravity oriented experience, right? For the directionally gravity oriented enduro experience, you can use the weight to your favor.
Yeah.
And, you're going up stuff that's no matter what you're pedaling up, it's awful.
It's hard.
It's awful.
Right.
It just, I think that depending on where you are, right, you get a lot of resilience to what that environment is. But I think, for this, when you're looking at a traditional pedal bike, it descends great. A bike that you can have the flexibility for taking to a bike park as well as pedaling, depending on like the time that you've got. It's set up well for that. And that's been the feedback that we've gotten. Like there are a lot of other bikes out there that still ride heavier than this for sure. And then there's things that hardcore riders do that additionally make the bike heavy.
I'm not a full suspension guy. I live in Iowa and we have sweet, short, but sweet, smooth, flowy single track. Like it's just, I said my favorite bike was that Superfly, fully rigid, right? And it's perfect. Like I don't need gears, I don't need suspension, and you just fly around this stuff. So I don't live in the world of full suspension, but I do look at that thing and appreciate that gravity rocks, right? Do you look at that and have the wheels turning and think, I think we could tweak this way and that way and come up with an XC bike, shave a few pounds off? Is that?
That's a great question and something that's like very important for us as a company. When we go out to market, particularly direct to consumer, we have to be very clear, and we've taken some lumps. Like we've learned this the hard way. We have to be very clear about what the use case is where this bike is ideal. And what we want is only the people for whom this bike is ideal for them to buy it and love it. We don't want to force anybody to just get something because they're curious about the tech or because it looks cool. I mean, that's across the board, right? We all know, like, this from being in bike shops. There are a lot of people that need an upright comfort bike, and they got some stuff that got them way spread out, way more than they needed to be. And I think with this, it's, like I said, the gravity-focused enduro experience is something where this bike really performs well. We aren't concerned about extending the use case in areas where it's not great, right? If there's people who are looking for an XC bike that's in the 20s, like all we would be doing to cut that weight right now would just be to try and catch up to a baseline that another bicycle delivers. So I don't think that's a really interesting area for us to try and force the technology. Now, will gearboxes get lighter in time? Yes. Will expansion of electric potentially get lighter and that we can take advantage of this platform? 100%. But like we are not here to force it. And we really have to be clear when we launch our bicycles about what performance means, right? And like even with our gravel bike, the Gemini, people are like, well, is that going to be the bike that I race Unbound on? And I said, no, like performance can mean different things. Performance can be ultralight, fast, and you ride the shit out of that thing. And then once you cross the finish line, you don't know what condition that bike is going to be in because that's what you're looking for. But performance can also be the ability to perform. And I think like for us, the ability to perform, and I think this comes from like our roots. And I think the successes we've had in the adventure space where it's like being able to enjoy your bike and use it well is, and us being very clear about what that is, particularly now when we go into this enduro space, is like we want to be very focused on the use case and the rider for whom the bike will perform. Do I think that this platform could have legs in downhill? Yes. Do I know what that means from an engineering standpoint? No. But I think that it has legs there. Do I know that this has legs for electric application? 100%. So I think those are the areas that we're thinking about. And I think it's something that's like good for people to know that like we aren't forcing ourselves to develop any new bikes that we don't think are great, right? Because like while we're working on this, people are buying beach cruisers, they're buying commuter bikes, they're buying family bikes, they're buying bike packing bikes. So like we don't have to force ourselves to iterate on this thing if it's not going to be a great solution.
I appreciate that. It's called focus, right?
Yeah. I don't have it in my real life, but I have it as it pertains to getting our products out there.
I want to talk about two more things.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Doozer first. Ryan Van Doozer, bike packer, YouTuber, and you guys have a great relationship with him. So it seems you've you've talked about Gold Hill and your weekend in Boulder. A, tell me about the weekend in Boulder, and B, tell me about the relationship with Doozer and kind of what came out of that relationship, i.e. the bike.
Yeah, for sure. So we actually met Ryan at a media event years ago. So we have a pretty robust hotel and resort business. And there was a hotel in Minneapolis, the Le Méridien in Minneapolis, wanted to have some winter-oriented bikes because the GM there was a champion of cycling. So we said, hey, why don't we do a winter event? We're going to ride on frozen Lake Calhoun on our bike called the Continuum, which has a Enviolo sealed hub on it, goes below freezing. We put studded tires on everyone's bikes, and we went and rode. So we invited all this media there to experience the hotel, experience the bikes, and this bicycle experience. And Doozer came. And ironically, Doozer was like, I'm not doing any more of these press events. Like, they're so stupid. Like, I'm being dragged out here, but I'm not like making anything that, my followers are interested in. And sometimes they're a hassle because like, we're not really doing like riding stuff. It's just stuff around riding. So he's like, this is the last one I'm going to go to. Well, we ended up meeting him there. And we get along really quickly. And he tells us how he's never owned a car. The only reason he ever got a driver's license was because it was for a commercial job. He doesn't know how to drive. And so he was like, yeah, I really like the idea of the bikes. So we had given him some of our commuter bikes to ride. And, he's really enjoying it, just grocery runs, getting around town. And then he came to us after a few years and he said, hey, I really like this pinion gearbox. I want to do the Divide, but I have some ideas for how that bike could fit and feel. And we said, hey, like, let's make it. So, we developed that bike. I couldn't even tell you what year. It's probably it's probably like six or seven, maybe 6 years ago. And we had made that first bike. And, two things sort of happened. One is the development there led us to, I think that Priority Bicycles should be regarded as the leader in low maintenance bike packing, right? I know that we make that a sliver, but like it really is unique in terms of what we can offer people for that sport touring experience. So I think our category there is really good. But then also like our friendship with Doozer has become one that's like a personal one. So, he talks a lot about Boulder and the beauty of Boulder in his videos and his content. He's always told us about it. He told me about RAGBRAI for years before I finally did it. It was a life-changing moment. So what we said is, let's do a best of Boulder weekend. And we're going to invite people. We stayed at the A Lodge out there. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Took over the A Lodge. We had 70 people come in, everywhere from Florida to Alaska, to come in, and we did the cruiser ride on Thursday, Boulder Icon. Friday, we did a couple different 20-mile rides. You can kind of choose your own adventure, kind of seeing different aspects of Boulder. And then on Saturday, we climbed. And I think that there's sort of two things that happen is like, one is you get this cool riding experience, but the other thing is you meet people for whom you have this like selected opt-in experience of sharing values, things that you're interested in, time with each other. When you're climbing a hill next to somebody and asking them questions about themselves, like you're learning as much about yourself as you are about them in that process. And I think you forge a lot of friendships that go far beyond like, oh, we like Doozer's content or we like to ride bikes. It's like, we like to go places and do things and experience new things together. And so all of that came out of just meeting each other at a random event in Minneapolis.
That's awesome. Fat bike?
It's been one that's like, it's sitting in drawings. I think for us, it's just figuring out the right end use case to really build around. And I think really honing in, fat bike people are very excited about fat bikes. They can be spread out across the country in cold climates. It can be kind of niche, or you can get people out west who love them in the sand. I think for us, it's just really figuring out what that product direction is. So again, we feel like we can make something that really stands out and it's very clear to people. That's the right bike for me.
How many bikes do you have to sell in order to be worth making that bike?
It depends. When we made our track bike, I think we only made 200 of them. I think Yeah, it really just depends. I mean, we don't want to make anything that's just going to be a one-off because it takes too much time. But, we're doing on the extra cycle side of our business. I don't know if you know John of John and Mira, but Adventure Bike Packer, he dog packs. So we made him a bike for the Divide, and that's a bike. It's a mid-tail cargo bike. And there's been a lot of people who are really interested in that. And that might be something that we bring to market that's super niche. Like we may only make 50 of them, but if there's 50 people who want it, we think, we could do something like that. So, some of that too is just listening and hearing like if there's an opportunity to make something. And even if it's niche, if we can make it happen, because it's like we can learn something from it. There's a passionate base, like we'll certainly explore it. But again, it does have to come back to those pillars that we talked about. Like it has to be low maintenance, best in class value. It really has to like check those boxes off for people.
Huh. Cool. I dig that. I dig that you don't have to make 500,000 of something in order to bring it to market, which again,
I'd be happy to.
I'm sure you would. I'm sure you would. 500,000 16-inch starts, please.
I know.
But that kind of explains how you can have such a wide variety of bikes in the market and available, which is cool. Speaking of in the market and available, like if somebody is curious, how I'd love to ride one. I'd love to see what that belt drive is like. I'd love to see what that pinion shifting is like. How do people do that if you're online?
Yeah, look, I think the online, one of the things with online is you're reading about it, not riding it for sure. There are some places that do stock our bikes. Like we do have some partners. We don't have a cross-country network just because we've never really been built for that. Certainly if you're in New York or if you're in Mill Valley, that's great. If you happen to be in the Ann Arbor area, you can go to Destination Cyclery. There are some pockets for sure you can see on the website. But one of the things that we've had to do, and I think, one of the things is having the customer service, having a return policy that's very clear. And those are things that we have. And, one of those things I think to unlock the benefit of the product, and I think the pricing and the advantages and the value of what we have, you're going to buy it online. And if you don't love it, we're going to take it back from you. And that's going to be still a core part of what we do. But we do just really feel like at the prices that we're able to sell at for people, the value is great. Our Gemini gravel adventure bike is $3,500. And when you're looking at comparisons, like you're going to find stuff out there that's $6,000 or $7,000, plus shipping, and it's gonna look like it came from IKEA when it gets to you, right? Like ours, you're going to get it. Right. You're going to put the handlebars and pedals on and, and start riding. So, I think that we definitely do ask and respect a lot of our customers to take a leap with us. But, we know that we're going to be here for them no matter what, their questions or needs are.
Huh. Very cool. And prioritybicycles.com is your website where they can find out that whole screen full of models that I talked about earlier.
I know, one of the things we got to work on which is crazy, is we need a new bike finder tool for people who, are first hearing about us. It's just all of a sudden we looked up one day and we're like, oh my gosh, we have way too many bikes. And also the hard part is when you've got a belt drive, any bike can be a commuter bike, right? Because depending on if your commuter is across a park, yeah, sure, take the van, but I think we'll definitely have some sorting of the website to do in 2026. But Priority Bicycles is the destination. Online, we're at Ride Priority on social media, but also too, you can email us, you can call us, you can text us, you can WhatsApp us. So we're around. If you send an email in and say, I heard Connor, I got a question for him, it'll get to me and I'll answer it.
Huh, that's cool. How big's your staff? How many people work there?
We got around 40
Oh, wow.
We are based in New York. That's the bulk of the company where we have most of our customer service, marketing, product development. And then our warehouse is in central PA, right near Williamsport. So if you ever watched Little League World Series, they're like 15, 20 minutes from there. If somebody orders today, we ship, not right now, right? If you order before 2:00, like we'll ship your bike that day, which is amazing. And our team there is led by a guy named Patrick, who's an amazing dude. And then out west in Mill Valley, we have a partnership with Extra Cycle. And so we have some of our models there, as well as the Extra Cycle product to check out. And that's just like such a unique, beautiful part of the country. Anybody who rides bikes has probably seen their tires in the dirt there at some point.
Yeah, cool. And is your mid-September ride the only one you guys do annually?
It's been a bit of a moving target. We actually, so we did RAGBRAI 3 years in a row. We're not going to do RAGBRAI next year. But I think what we're going to do is probably try and plan 2 or 3 rides of our own, maybe a little bit more. We've been doing some rides with Cascade Bicycle Club out in Seattle. Tremendous bicycle club, has a lot of great rides. I think what we'd like to do, like next year, if we could do 3 rides where we're able to bring community together and deliver them a unique experience, I think that'd be really great. And then we'll probably just do some dumb stuff on our own as we hurt ourselves. Like, the thing is when you do adventure riding and you're in Manhattan, like anything we have to do, there's so much riding right out of our doors here. It's remarkable for people. They're shocked. You can go bike packing right out of our office and think you're in the middle of nowhere in an hour. But because it's such a lift because we have jobs and have to work and all that, anytime we get out of the office, I feel like we're just doing stuff that's just soul crushingly difficult. So it'd be nice to be able to do a ride where it's just like 35 miles a day, some dirt, and like a 12 pack of beers. Can we just enjoy being on a bike as opposed to doing these like 100 mile days in 110 degree heat?
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Yep. I remember I hosted a ride, and at the time I came up with it, I was doing a 100K gravel ride in end of February. It is hard. I'm going up some hill in peanut butter, and I'm like, dang it, why does every freaking ride have to be the hardest ride that ever was? And so I came up with a 100-mile gravel ride, and man, it crushed people's souls. People got back and they're like, dude, that was the hardest 100-mile ride that there ever was. I'm like, I'm sorry about that. Like the gravel was super soft, sandy, hard to ride through. Fat bike would have been perfect. But yeah, I get you. Every ride doesn't have to be a hard ride. It can be a fun ride.
I think the other thing too for us, the rides that we want to do are rides I think where we want to get people together, and we want people to enjoy it. We want scalable rides. So for people who want to go faster or harder, they can. So that takes a lot of planning for us to figure out those routes. The other thing for me is when we do a group event, I don't want to worry about food and water because like within that big group setting, that can get very challenging. Like if somebody comes out and they're like, oh, that sounds like fun, and they have a water bottle and you're like, dude, we're going up for 4 hours. Like you ain't getting water up there, dude. So I think for us, like if we create a ride, we want to be able to pre-think about all that stuff, feel really good about scalability. I think I love the idea of coming back to the same place at a certain point where everyone can like hang out and just like enjoy their time, have a few drinks if that's their thing. If not, like listen to music, hang out, meet new people. So that's our goal with the events that we plan. I think we've done a good job thus far, but we definitely want to keep figuring that out.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to be watching your social media and your website for events that I could hop onto, and I am bike curious. A friend of mine runs. You've probably seen him on RAGBRAI, Bike Iowa website called Bike Iowa, and he sells a T-shirt. Bike sexual, and I'm bike sexually curious. So I've been trying to not say bike sexual, but there it is. Anyway, I'm super curious about it's. Yep.
Still the bike industry.
It is. But I'm super curious, and I'd love to get on sometime and try them out. So I'll definitely be watching and try and connect. So
for sure, we'd love to get you on a bike. We'd love to get you out hanging and, having a good time on wheels.
Sweet. I dig it. Well, Connor, appreciate you taking the time and coming on and sharing your story on Bike Talk with Dave. And I wish you the best.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the content you put out there, the stories that you tell, the diversity of them. So it's really an honor to be on and get to hang out today.
Oh, you're kind. Thank you. Thanks, Connor, for taking the time to talk with me and share your story. And if any of you listening would like to find out more, be sure and check out Priority Bicycles on Instagram. And I got to tell you, you should also check out their YouTube channel. They've got lots of great info, of course, on their bikes, how to assemble them, troubleshooting, things like that. But they also have super fun stuff about rides, all kinds of stuff about their RAGBRAI experience, like all kinds of stuff about their RAGBRAI experience. They bike packed it, carried their own stuff. Dee and I did too this year, pulling a Burley, and we took turns every time we stopped pulling the thing. It was heavy. Anyway, they bike pack, so they show you how they packed, what they rode, what they are happy they did, what they wish they did different, stuff like that. So check out their YouTube channel for sure. You can also dive deep into the brand at prioritybicycles.com. Of course, I'll put a link in the show notes, but that's where you can see the whole lineup of their bikes. Worth checking out. Well, thanks again for tuning in, and since you are smashing subscribe buttons, be sure and smash the Bike Talk subscribe button. I don't know what that means. Follow and all that good stuff. Anyway, we're on Instagram, YouTube, and you can check out every single episode, all of them, 165 of them, at biketalk.bike. I hope you have a great week. Happy riding. And remember that nothing compares to the simple pleasure of riding a bicycle.